up next, we have a great fireside chat. So please come over and sit down in the chairs we have here in front of the stage. We're going to have, we have a very special guest with us today. It is Shane O'Donoghue from CompleteCar.ie. You're very, very welcome to Drogheda, Shane. Again, I know you were here with us a few weeks ago on a tourism, I suppose, venture, but you were with us, so thanks for coming back. Next up, we've got, Shane is going to be basically talking to these lovely people who we have. So we've got Katie Kearns. Everybody knows Drogheda Life, of course, and this is the person behind Drogheda Life. So, Katie, great to have you with us, so thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, we've got Laura Durrigan, and Laura Durrigan is First Citizen Finance, so one of the supporters today for the show. Lots of finance options there, so we'll be going through some of them, hopefully, as well with Shane. And last but not least, Alan has been with us since year one. And Alan Reynolds from Brian Reynolds Car Sales, Mazda MG, Fiat Professional. So lots of stuff to talk about. So I'm going to pass over to the very capable hands of Shane, and enjoy.
Thanks very much, Robert, and thanks for having me. It's a huge privilege to be here. This is the 16th year of the show, I believe, and it looks like it's going from strength to strength. This is a great location here, right by the Boyne, I think, so really showcases huge selection of cars. Had a bit of a walk around earlier, and there is a massive selection here. I think a lot for people to come and see in terms of performance, classic, and then of course to buy, which Alan, you'll be happy to hear.
Absolutely, yes.
There is a lot of EVs here, a lot of hybrid, but there's something for everybody, which I like to see. I think before we get talking about the cars and car industry too much, I think those of us in the industry have more of a responsibility than almost anybody else to talk about road safety. And it's a key message for this show, and I think I really like that about this show, and Robert's been quite at the forefront of that, pushing it. And anything that can bring road safety to the attention of people, I think is a really good thing, whether it's a car show like this or any other campaign. It's something dear to all of our hearts. You know, the numbers are going the wrong way in Ireland, unfortunately, so we 100% need to focus on road safety, and anything we can do will help that. I think segueing from that to modern cars is useful, because modern cars, like we're seeing here, all have an unbelievable number of safety gizmos and technology, and it isn't just about protecting people in the car. Almost all of them now have systems that protect people outside the car, so pedestrians, cyclists, people on horses, whatever. And I think that's a major change in the industry, and people need to realise that. I mean, Alan, you're selling cars to people all the time. Is this something that people are interested in?
Yeah, well, people that have traded up, say, in the last, if they have a 3 or 4 year old car and they're getting into a new car now, there's a vast changes. So you've got lane monitoring systems. You even have sensors now that monitor your driving. If they think you're yawning too much or if you're looking tired, the car will tell you to pull in and have a coffee. So it's great safety features, and it's all standard across Europe.
And Katie, you have a huge following in Drogheda here. Is road safety is it in people's minds? Is it something that people in Drogheda really care about, do you think?
I think definitely, like any time, unfortunately over the last kind of 12 months, there has been a number of kind of car accidents, not necessarily in Drogheda, but beyond the kind of wider northeast. And, you really see the impact, in the community, and the response from the community is all about, trying to change that narrative and having conversations with children, with friends, with peers, colleagues. It's really something that should be at the forefront of car safety should be at the forefront of all of our minds, and something we should be speaking about with the people in our lives, not just something that we're talking about when something negative happens or we see new numbers coming through. But I know definitely there's been a lot of work in the local community with the local guards and things like that, and the local dealers, to really try and shift some of that narrative over the last 12 months as well. And I think that's so prevalent to see and really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on education there at a young age, and I think that's a really good idea. Do you think shows like this or events like this are good for that?
100%, because and especially I think, you mentioned that the car show, the Drogheda Motor Show is 16 years now, and I think what's so, heartening is to see the expansion of it, and to see the incredible selection of, local dealers that we have here in Drogheda, which I think is very unique for, a place like here. And then, obviously having people come out and speaking to dealers and chatting about, the different features of cars and new innovation within that sector is so important. And I think that kind of shows like this really bring cars to the forefront of everyone's mind. But obviously road safety is just such an imperative part of that.
And Laura, speaking of dealers, of course, you know the dealers in the area almost better than anybody else. You deal with them day in, day out. I mean, do you feel they're very much part of the fabric of Drogheda and the area?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the largest shows in the town annually, and it is something that people look forward to and speak about during the year. And then I think we're bringing in a lot of the community aspect of it. There's so many community groups involved in the show and with the dealers. It just shows a great sense of, as I say, community and working together to, shine a light on Drogheda, which is very important for towns within the country, just to keep them rejuvenated.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of car buyers that come to a show like this, especially right now, are certainly thinking about electric cars. Alan, I have to go back to you on this. That you must be finding it. Almost every person that comes into a showroom now must at least start a conversation about it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think we can thank our little orange friend in America for a lot of it this year, if I'm being honest. With the delay on petrol, getting to petrol stations and stuff like that, it really put a big question on people. Like, if you can't drive, what can you do? Do you know, that kind of way? So we noticed within a week of all the carry on and all the petrol price hikes and stuff like that, that everyone coming in is looking for EV. Now, there's still a place for petrol and diesel, but there's a strong demand on EV.
And I'd be really interested to hear from somebody who's at the cold face, if you like, because we deal with buyers as well. We talk to them about which car they might go for and whatever, but somebody's actually in the showroom talking about the car they're trading in and what they're potentially going for next. I mean, what are the main conversations? Are they still thinking about range? Is that still a worry?
Yeah, range for if you're buying an EV for the first time, range is definitely an issue. The more range you can have, the better. Because range anxiety is real, and look, we've all had it, and it's probably the reason most people are not talking about EVs. If it's your second EV, people are not nearly as worried. They have a car that's doing 400 kilometers, and it never goes below 100 or 150. So on your second car, it's not as big an issue, but it's still, on your first, it certainly is. Yeah, it definitely is still.
And on the car finance side, Laura, I mean, do you have a feel for increasing numbers with electric?
Absolutely, we're seeing that in our loan book. We're seeing people move towards EV again. You're looking at the price of fuel. You're looking at the green aspect of things. So definitely, we are seeing a move from traditional diesel and petrol. But as I say, it's all about right car, right fit. Looking at your budget, looking at your the range that you're doing. So there's so many things that go into a choice now about a car. It's not simply I like a blue one. There's like 700 questions before you even get to your finance side of things. So no, I think it's a real interesting time in the market at the moment, for sure.
And Katie, I mean, with your huge following, you must deal with people with all of these questions as well. So even in Drogheda, things like charging, is this something that comes up from your readership at all?
It's definitely something that comes up, and even like the announcement recently about that the government's brought in new grants and things like that. It's something that people are interested in, but I think, again, like back to that education piece, there's a lack of education, I know a lot of my friends, who have actually made the switch to fully EV and not just hybrid, have charge points in houses. But if you kind of have an older house, that's not necessarily always as accessible.
Or a driveway.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're in an apartment and, so that's not always accessible as an option for everyone. But friends of ours were saying, when you go to like the big superstores like Tesco, like Lidl, they all have, a suite of spots available as charging points. So it really isn't, I think, as much of an issue as it used to be.
It's definitely improved. It's definitely improved over the past few years, for sure. You can see it in Drogheda. Even the new Tesco was above, I think there's like 24 spots. It's huge.
Yeah, it's amazing, and like having access to that is incredible. Even on Fair Street, there's a number of charging spots, which is great. So I think people are still kind of probably feeling a bit more comfortable with the hybrid connection, just because you still have the option of doing both, and you can see the appeal of that. But I definitely think for my next car, I'd just be going fully electric, because I'm
just over here, just to the left-hand side of the stage.
Because
other brands are available.
There's many dealers here, not just Alan. But yeah, so there's like the price point, I think, is obviously something that's really important to people as well. And you don't want to spend too much on a car. But I think around the electric side, it's interesting. I think people also often overestimate how actually far they're traveling on a day-to-day basis. a lot of the time they're just going to Dublin maybe, or Dundalk, or Wicklow. It's not actually that they're doing, you know, these long journeys of needing 700 kilometres in one go.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, actually, Katie. We get readers, and especially Alan, like you said, it's first people who are going for their first EV are massively worried about it. And the reality is most people drive less than 50 kilometres a day. Most people, not everybody, obviously, but most people do. And as you say, most people don't go below 100 kilometres range left in their car. And once they've realised what their cars can do, and especially if you're lucky enough to have a driveway or to be able to charge up at home or at work, then it's a game changer. Now, I think the government has a long way to go in terms of charging infrastructure in the public realm, and for apartments and everything, because while it is massively improving, it is actually still more expensive than charging at home. Like, charging at home is so much cheaper than charging out in the public. And I think something needs to be done to bridge that gap, especially in communities, and communities of newer houses, for example, where it makes more sense to have community chargers than just to have everybody have their own charger at home, perhaps. So I think there's something to be said there. But myself, we have had an electric car. We're on our third electric car, actually. But I will agree that it isn't for everybody. So I think that's why it's nice to see such a selection of cars here. There still is something for everybody. And if you're not quite ready to make the move, or if you can't have a home charger, then there are loads of other options. And I think actually plug-in hybrids seem to be coming a bit into the mix more than they used to be, again, as people are wondering whether, you know, it's a nice halfway house. I mean, Alan, are you finding there's much interest in plug-ins?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. For the guys that aren't like immediate converters, they're halfway house, but they're a really positive step to get you used to it. And if you're driving a plug-in hybrid for a few years, your next step is a full EV. You know, that's just the way it happens.
Yeah, there's no doubt, especially if you go to trouble getting a home charger and everything, you're then used to plugging a car in at home. And I think that's it. Once that clicks, you realise that you don't have to go to a petrol station too often. You just plug in and it's easier. It's clean, it's cheaper if you can actually use as much of the electric power as possible. And I think, you know, that is the way it's going. The government clearly signalled that we're going to see more incentives that way, because there's a recent announcement on what's called the ICE to EV scheme. It's a scrappage scheme for older cars. It's quite limited at the moment, and I don't think it's perfect myself. You can talk about that offline perhaps. But it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it definitely indicates that the government is continuing with incentivising EVs. So I think it's probably a good time to be buying them. And Laura, in terms of finance, is there a push in finance as well to be buying EVs as such?
Absolutely, there's a push for the green realm altogether. Really, the people are incentivized to make that move. I mean, generally, we will treat a diesel the same as an EV, but in some cases there are special exceptions available for this sort of thing. But no, I definitely think if the budget can fit it, you know, if you can look at and say, you know, I can spend €400 a month, and you can make it fit into the EV realm really, really simply. There's definitely room to make the move and not be too far out in your budget.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing almost price parity really now, between EVs and petrol, diesel, or hybrid cars. I mean, there's a huge variety anyway, but an EV is as affordable now. For sure.
Absolutely.
And I think that's been a bit of a game changer. Whereas before it was seen as somebody, you know, taking an initial step or being one of the first people to go for new technology. Now it's very much mass market. And it's whether you're ready for EV or not is kind of the conversation. I mean, what more could the government be doing, do you think?
I think, like, although it is still widely accepted, it's much more accessible now than it was, say, a few years ago for early adopters. I think there is still a conversation around, you know, there is a huge used and second-hand car market in Ireland, and I think there's not enough being done to look at, you know, EVs and hybrids in that space, in that market as well. Because I think there is a kind of a little bit of a stigma amongst people about buying a second-hand EV or hybrid. So I'd be interested to hear Alan's thoughts on that versus a new hybrid or EV. So I think there could be a little bit of narrative shift or more introduction to supports from the government from that perspective.
They got a bit of bad press for sure. It's about 2 years ago now, they kind of fell off, EVs. Yeah, they certainly did. I think it's the manufacturers probably to blame in one sense, in that we had no supply, and then we had a lot of supply at one time, and manufacturers, like they do, they reduced the prices, which affected the used car values. But what I will say is, it's not like that anymore. I can only speak for ourselves, but our used EVs they're far quicker selling than anything else. They sell very well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean,
And holding their value really well too. So I mean, it has definitely improved. Value-wise, it's definitely improved.
there's a lot of value out there for sure for people buying used EVs. I think the message needs to get out there that they are good buys still. And this is
100%. That narrative shift really hasn't come to market, I don't think.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think needs to be a message that's kind of communicated a bit more freely to the general public.
Yeah, I agree completely, and it was one of the criticisms I had with the ICE to EV scheme. I thought there was room there to promote used EVs more, perhaps.
I think it's really important if you're buying a used EV that you get either the garage or an independent person to just test the battery. You know, and like, I suppose it's very easy to say for someone to say in the pub or somewhere to say, oh, sure, the battery will go in no time and it'll cost you 20 grand to replace it. It's a very simple test. It costs like 70 quid or something like that to get a battery test, and most dealerships can do it now. You get it printed out, you know exactly what's on the tin. For most of the 3-year cars that we test now are 93, 94, 95%. So it's just that bit of peace of mind that now we can't guarantee nothing will go wrong, but there is long warranties on the EV batteries as well. So, but get the test if you're thinking used EV.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. People don't probably realise that such a test exists, because it's not that you're buying an unknown. You can do that test and you know you're buying what you're buying. The battery, if the battery is at state of charge is at 93%, then it's effectively like a new battery anyway. Nobody runs their battery down to zero in day-to-day driving. And the negative headlines we had a few years ago, some of the headlines that grabbed the attention were things like the cost of replacing a whole new battery, and that they're not lasting 5 years, and it was effectively nonsense. That a lot of it, there was 1 or 2 cases where there were issues, but the vast majority of these cars have been proven to last a long time beyond the warranty. The warranties now on batteries are generally 8 years.
It's 8 years, and if a manufacturer is given 8 years warranty, they believe that the battery will last 16 years or more.
Yeah, fair point. I'm not going to take a bet on it. But from practical point of view, it's no good us sitting up here and telling people this. I mean, that test is a really good point. If you really are considering a used EV, look into getting the battery checked. And then it's not guesswork. And also it's worth pointing out as well that for used petrol, diesel and hybrid cars, if something goes wrong with them for years, an engine goes, that's thousands of euros as well. So, and the failure of the EVs is less likely. I think that's a key thing. There are fewer moving parts. They are simpler devices in effect. Not that I'm here to push EVs on everybody, I might add.
We've gone down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it does sound like that, yeah. No, 100%. If somebody wants a hybrid or a petrol diesel, we're here to discuss that too.
Other brands are available.
But I think we should bring back to the road safety aspect again before we finish up. I'm based in Dublin, but people outside the city, I think, feel it more. There are a lot more dangerous crashes on rural roads than there are urban, and I think it's something to have a conversation about. What can be improved? What does the panel think needs to change?
God, I sadly didn't start with Alan. He's probably more knowledge on this than me, but I think you see a lot of challenges on rural roads with the sizes of the vehicles that are on certain roads that make like HGVs and things like that, and that can obviously create some challenges. But I think a lot of the crashes that you really actually see, or accidents, tend to be around like going back to core road safety things like drink driving, late night driving, tiredness. It's kind of those things that are really tangibly preventable. So I think it's just back to that like narrative of how can we as media, how can we work with like the local community to really try and get that message out there to the general public, to kids in schools. How can you work with kind of local dealers? Because I think at the end of the day, like, you can talk about improving our roads and things like that, but a lot of it comes back down to the general safety elements that you can teach from a very young age.
The dealers, we've met with the RSA, and it is like, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely, there's no other word. If you sit in front of at a desk in front of someone from the RSA, and they tell you exactly what they see every week, it is absolutely heartbreaking. I suppose it's personal responsibility as well. You know, we're all guilty of it. I know from time to time you get a text comes through, you look, see who texts you. Put the phones away. That's if you want to do anything to improve road safety, just put the phone away. Put it in the glove box, put it in your back pocket. You know, that's where I'd start.
Absolutely, and you look at other things like tiredness, like you were saying. I mean, take the 10-minute break, the 20-minute break, get the cup of coffee. You know, it's 10 minutes out of your day, but you know, it could make a massive difference to just this one thing that happens, that you're just not 100% on the ball.
Yeah, I think that's a really good message. And looking at the stats earlier, actually here, what's surprising actually is just how many of these crashes happen between 4 and 8 p.m. So it isn't always 3-4 o'clock in the morning that people might envisage. A lot is happening at that rush hour. People going home from work, and Laura, like you said, people are probably tired. You know, they've been up early and they're rushing to get home, or they're rushing to get their kids to a GA game or whatever. You know, that period is obviously a lot of people on the road, and it's a bit of a pinch point.
There is a lot of personal responsibility in things, as you say, Alan. You're responsible for this vehicle, you know, this huge vehicle on the road. You need to be, you know, as 100% as you can be. Just keep focus and keep your mind on the path.
And I think on the roads right now, I don't know if you will agree with me, but there's been a bit of a slip in standards, driving standards on the road, and I think the general public seems to agree on this. I've been on many radio stations discussing this, and everybody seems to be in agreement. And this is something about personal responsibility, and I'm not quite sure what we can do about that to improve that.
As somebody who only took their driving test and passed first time last August, I can say with certainty that yes, people do not know the rules of the road, because my instructor was like teaching me when I was going down and doing you're doing all your practice steps and going out with friends and things like that, and you're looking at people, you're like, does no one believe in indicating anymore, or like, you know, really basic things that you'd be failed for in your test.
The roundabout.
The roundabout, and there's so many now in Drogheda as well. There's so many new roundabouts. So that's always a funny question, because every day I'm always like, hey, I've already just passed my test. All these people need to go and do it again.
I think, as Alan said, using devices while driving is a major problem. And it's all generations. I mean, you know, I've got teenagers at home and I say, oh, get off your phones. But actually, you know, we're the same. Myself and my wife at home are on our phones a lot. And the older generation is the same. It's no different. You know, our parents use their phones all the time too. So it's just part of society now that you have your phone on you all the time and you're constantly getting notifications and messages. And I think we need to do a better job of taking that away from the driving situation, because it's so distracting. Every notification, even if it takes your attention off the road for a second, it could be the wrong second. Now, most of the time it isn't, but it could be the wrong second. And I think that is probably something that we need to focus on as much as speeding. I think that needs to be a core message. It's harder to detect, of course. That's the big difficulty, the challenge that the Gardaí have. It's very easy to catch people speeding. That's a very simple thing to do, relatively speaking. But catching people on their phones and stopping people, and actually, just want to go back to that, the word catching even is perhaps the wrong way to think about it. It's not about getting caught. It's about not doing it in the first place. And hopefully an event like this and chats like this will bring that to attention and more people think about it.
Because even like you're talking about the phones, but it's actually even Apple Watches.
Yeah.
You know, like I've actually been in the car and I was on the motorway and I actually had to take off my watch because my phone was away, but my watch kept buzzing, and it's so hard not to look at it. But when you're driving, 100 kilometers going down the motorway,
it just takes a second.
Literally.
That's the problem with all these things. It's a second.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully that's been of interest to everybody. Thank you so much to the panel, and we're all here for the rest of the day if you want to, accost us or buy a car.
Where can we buy a car from you, Alan? Where do we need to go? Where's your area?
Just here left. There's some lovely cars, EVs, petrol.
There are loads of other brands here I might like to point out.
Shop local.
Thanks, yeah, shop local.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.